We're good. Some things never changed, LTF Nation. I can never get to the intro, right? Between gremlins in the computers today and Todd Langdon, because he got in about 10 minutes ago from West Monroe. Man, I am excited. And he told us that he would come back, and he stuck to his word. Gordon Dasher, thank you so much for coming back on and being our guest again.
Absolutely.
As your friend Phil would say.
It's
oh my goodness. So whenever Todd, when Gordon and I recorded the first time, off the camera a little bit and even on, we kind of talked about church hurt, and Gordon said we're going to name it "Suck It Up." So that's going to be the name of this. Name of this podcast is going to be "Suck It Up."
Suck It Up.
But we're not able to get Gordon all the time, so we do have a few subjects we want to talk to him about. One is the book that you ghost wrote with Phil and or co-wrote. I mean, I've got that for folks to see here. So I could be wrong, but I doubt it. And like I was telling, and this book is still available, by the way. It just came out in March, Gordon, is when it actually came out?
Yes.
So it's still available. It's an awesome, awesome read. I don't care how many of Phil's books you've read. You've got to read this one. It's different. It has a different vibe. And hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit. Also, I wanted to get Gordon on to talk about, before we get into the church hurt, because that can go 2 or 3 different ways. But Gordon, Todd and I, we've really changed the focus of the podcast towards discipleship and mentoring. And one of the things we like to talk about are the people those who have had an impact in your life or in our life through our walk. I know, the time that you went through, with Jan, it can start way back when you first give your life to the Lord, and the people that really had an impact as you walked. And then, those that really stood by you and had the impact on you, through what you dealt with there with Jan. And congratulations on your marriage, by the way. That's awesome, brother. And to see how the family has accepted you guys, I mean, that's awesome. That's the way it ought to be, brother. Yeah. That's I've tried to tell that to my family when my sister died about my brother-in-law, but I don't know if they're getting it or not. But anyway, then what I'd like to do is we'll transition into church hurt. And I don't need to get into a lot of what happened with me. It's just, it was a bad breakup when I left. But a lot has, over the last couple of weeks before we've done this, a lot has come to mind that I've a lot of windshield time up and down the road, and some things that I think will go back into the discipleship and mentoring side of things. And people don't, pastors. We have a guy that comes on here I graduated with, Curtis Gerald, pastors a small church in Idaho. And
Iowa, John.
Iowa. I don't know why I keep saying Idaho. I just keep Curtis and potatoes. I don't know what it is. But anyway, he's a great guy. But man, I can tell that at times he struggles and gets lonely. But anyway, Gordon, Todd, welcome back from West Monroe. What an awesome time! 20 women baptized at the women's retreat this past weekend.
Lives changed, families changed.
Your sleep patterns changed.
That's it. It's completely. It's the entire reason to serve is to serve and see these women accept Christ into their life and let the work begin. And they're just stepping into that journey, and hopefully they have good people surrounding them. And I know there's bunches that are local there to West Monroe and WFR, so they'll be loved on. There's no doubt. But the ones that came in from out of town and traveled, I do pray that they have a core group around them and they plug into, and it'll be tremendous.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. Before we get started, I have a couple things. So, Gordon, I don't know if you know the gospel hats that Al and Jace is wearing. Well, we've hooked up with that guy, Brian
611
Robinson,
Armory.
911 or 611 Armory. So, if you would go to 611 Armory.com and see Brian, he's carrying our merch on there. We've got a hat and a shirt on there right now. We've got some other things that are coming along. Probably one of the have these in 2 weeks. And Gordon doesn't have his hats because Robert Abel's cooking home. I think he's keeping for himself. And the other one is, go check out Chad's stuff. We're produced by Forerunner Productions. Go check out Chad's stuff on forerunnerproductions.com, forerunnerproductions.locals.com. And on YouTube, you have to go to Forerunner Productions on YouTube and then go to the playlist for Let's Talk Fortitude. So
And the other part about the 611 Armory sales, that all of those proceeds, everything that sells on there for Let's Talk Fortitude goes to One Kingdom. And it's a tremendous ministry to spread the gospel worldwide.
That's Brian there with the gospel hat on.
That's right.
Between Randall and Robert. So when he did that, Gordon, I just said, I said, I want to, whatever, because we're split at 50-50 on the proceeds. And I said, just send all mine. I want you to send all mine, anything that's made on the hat after cost, send it to One Kingdom. I believe in what they do. So he said, well, I'm going to do the same thing. So we've been waiting until we could get up there and tell everybody what was happening. So he's a tremendous guy. And man, he can't keep his hats in stock. I mean, what Al and Jason have done for him is incredible. So I'm going to tee you up, Gordon, and talk to us about what it was like, how this all come about, Phil's new book. And look, I want to be respectful of your time too. So if we need to come back later and talk and record again, I want to be very respectful to your time. So you let me know how you're doing on time.
We'll go until Todd falls asleep. He's looking like he's nodding off a little bit.
Yeah, that trip it's a rough trip, but the more I make it, the easier it gets.
It's 13 hours for me, and Todd's 2 hours south of me. Now that's at my speed. That's not driving Todd's speed. It's about 45 minutes away he drives.
It's not my favorite trip. I made it from Florida to Louisiana back and forth maybe 150 times over a 50-year period. 40 years. See, it's 1974. How many years ago was that? 50?
50. That's right, 50.
Has a house sold, by the way?
My wife's?
Yeah.
No. 81.
I saw where you put something on Facebook the other day.
No, and your listeners need to go if they're looking for a house in Bradenton, Florida. 8108 12th Avenue Northwest. She'll make you a deal.
Okay.
So your question was, I'm ADD. I got off track.
All right.
we all are.
Welcome to the bunch
This will be fun. There'll be a lot of rabbits chased in this podcast.
So the question was, what was it like with working with Phil on this book? I could be wrong. And you alluded to a tremendous story just on the title alone.
Okay, so he originally wanted to call it the Jesus Resume, and it came out of a sermon. It really wasn't even a sermon. He just researched all of the names of Jesus that are found in the scriptures. And I wish I had that right before me. But so I went in. It was like 60 of them, maybe. It was a bunch. Just he wrote it out on a sheet of paper, just a legal pad, and handed it to me. And then I went and I pulled out key chapter titles, and I wrote the chapters around those. There were I think 10 or 12. And hold on, I got titles like I can find the Jesus, like Jesus the Creator, and going back to John chapter 1, where by him, through him, all things were made that have been made. He's talking about the Word. Then Jesus, the King of Kings, the greatest teacher, the living water from John. Those chapter titles came out of that list of things he gave me. And then at the end of the book, I just threw them all in there, the same list he gave me. I just put those at the end of the book. So anyway, I'm working on this book, and I can't remember at the time. I think I had are you there? Yeah. I think I had finished the manuscript, but I'm not sure. But we met with the publisher, Thomas Nelson. And there was the publisher, the associate or assistant publisher. There was a marketing director, Phil's agent. And then we're in a podcast. It's me, me, Phil, and Al. We're doing a special podcast for this book. And we were talking about just the book, and we didn't have a title yet, and other than Jesus Resume, but I Googled Jesus Resume, and there were like 1,000. I mean, there were so many Jesus Resume books and articles and stuff out there. Well, then you know how Phil is he's just like off task. Like we're talking about one thing, and he goes, "Hey, I tell you what, old Jace came in here with a T-shirt on the other day that said, 'I could be wrong,' written across the front of it." I said, "Jace, you ought to put, 'but I doubt it,' on the back of it."
Right.
In other words, Jace is never wrong, right?
Right.
So I said, "Hey, that's the title of our book." And they all, the publisher was sitting off out of camera, and they were all like, excited, about this title. So that's how we came up with the title of Phil. He didn't even know he came up with it, but he did. What was it like working with him on the book? Let me explain the process. So just imagine that Phil puts all of his ideas. He cuts the end of a shotgun shell off, opens it up, dumps everything out except for the primer. And he packs all his ideas in that shotgun shell, loads it up in his shotgun, fires it up in the air, and I'm trying to grab these ideas as they're coming out of the air. So that's what it's like. I mean, and the reason I think that I'm pretty good at that is I lived with his female clone for 42 years. She was just like that. She never had a coherent train of thought, just like Phil. Never a coherent train of thought. Just one thing leads to another, and you've got like 5 or 10 tangents on the story going out there, and you go, "Connect it all together, please," But
that's right.
And he never did either. He never has. But I just look at the impact that he's had on so many people, either directly, and it started out directly. There was no internet in the beginning. It's just all these river rats coming down to his house, and he'd take them out fishing or duck hunting, and just baptize them on the spot. And he was pretty radical. And just then it went into the videos that they had, and then that morphed into the original Duck Commander show. And then one day, this was before Duck Dynasty, but it was while the Duck Commander show was going on. We were riding into town. We were both elders. We were riding to a meeting one Wednesday night. And he said, "Dash, have you ever heard of something called YouTube?" And I said, "Yeah, I've heard of YouTube." He said, "Hey, they're putting my sermons on YouTube, and everybody's listening to them." And I said, "Huh." I had an old phone. I don't remember what kind I had, but I got it out. I typed in YouTube, and I got the app up, and I typed in Phil Robertson preaching. And I said, "This will astound you, Phil. You know that internet that you constantly rail against? Listen to this."
That's it.
I said, 1,200,000 views, 400,000 views, 2 million views. I mean, that was back then. And I said, millions of people are hearing you preach the gospel through the very thing that you speak against.
Yep.
He said, well, maybe I ought to modify my remarks about the internet then.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I think you should. But
Yep.
I love his passion. We're great friends, and you know, it's been a good run being his brother-in-law, and I think he would say the same thing. I loved writing his books, and I really admire him a lot. He's a good guy.
So, excuse me, everybody. That granola bar I had sucked down real quick coming in from work. It's not doing too well. So off the camera, I mentioned that this book, to me, has a different feel to it. And when I read this book, and I told Todd the whole time I was reading it, I said, Todd, this book's got a discipleship feel to it. It's more along. It has a mentoring feel to it. It has a discipleship feel to it. And when I got started, I couldn't put it down. I didn't want to stop. And after having you on the podcast and talking to you, I could feel some of you in the reading, and I thought it's very, very well done, Gordon. And I can't thank you enough. And here's one of the things that makes that book even more special to me was when Burley made the arrangements for us to go down a couple of weeks ago for Todd and Burley to baptize me there at the boat ramp. And and Todd will tell you, we never one time did anybody ever say, hey, Burley, can you get Phil down there? Well, Brian Robinson was actually in the truck with Burley when he called Phil when we were going through the gate. He said, hey, I'm bringing some guys down. We're going down to the boat ramp. We're going to baptize. That was it. Didn't say anything else. When we rolled up, here comes Phil walking down to the boat ramp. And did I show you that picture that he was?
Yeah.
So I won't go there again. But anyway, it was just to hear him in person and to see him that he is the same man, the same person that you see on the podcast or on Duck Dynasty or wherever it's at. The man is original, and he's very humble. He shared with us and he prayed over us, and then he stayed there while they baptized me and Brian, and he got off next to a tree where you couldn't see him. And it was just like, hey, this is their moment. I'm out of this. I'm just, it was the humility and the humbleness that he showed was just incredible. And I was, and here's the great thing. My youngest, Todd's son, and Todd's nephew were all there to experience that with us, with Phil Robertson. And that, to me, that meant as much to me that those guys got to experience that. That those moments are very quickly going by or becoming fewer and fewer for anybody to have those moments. And for us to get ours, I was very thankful. Very, very appreciative. So yeah, I mean, he's the real deal. So going into, everybody, please go get the book. It's on Amazon. It's just about any of your Christian bookstores. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. And it's a fantastic read. It's not a hard read. It's just it's so down to earth, and it's an awesome read. Please take my word on it. Go grab this book, and you're gonna. I'm going to tell you something. The man preaches no matter what he does. And Gordon you did a fantastic job. So what I'd like to do is kind of transition real quick, or not real quick, but let's transition into, I can't remember. I don't think you and I really got into discipleship much in our last one because we spoke a lot about Jan. But now, Mike Kellett did talk about you coming to the preaching school when we had him and Robert on talking about One Kingdom. But we did talk about you, matter of fact, quite a bit, didn't we, Todd?
Yes.
It was all good.
It was all good.
Very good.
It was all good. They love you, bro. I'm going to tell you right now, they love you.
I love them. They're good guys.
That's one thing, Gordon, that I got, that's one thing I got to say that probably draws me and Todd both there is those people love you unconditionally. They love you the way you are. And when they say welcome home, they mean welcome home. And so through your journey and through your walk as a young now, through things that you've had, are there people that you look back on that you really realize now that had a tremendous impact on you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to go back to you mean in a positive way?
Either way. I mean, listen, we generally go positive, but listen, we can learn as much about negative. I got some of them negatives too, if you want to know the truth about it.
Yeah, I mean, there were people that had a super impact on me. My mother's dad, his name was Cliff Dykes, George Clifton Dykes from Valdosta, Georgia. Back in the early 70s, and I must have been around, well, I turned 18 in 72. So, 72. He was an elder at a church in Valdosta, Georgia, and they just became convinced that all the churches were segregated then, black and white. And they really started working hard to bring African-American people into their church. And it was okay with one or two, but then it got to be, in the eyes of some people, including my dad's sister, it got to be out of control. And they probably lost a third of the white members of the church. They just bolted.
Wow.
And my grandfather just told me, I mean, I don't know all about his theology in that church, that denomination I grew up in, but I do know that his character was so rooted in a desire to honor God in the way that he led the church, that he just didn't back down. So not too many years later, I went to the School of Biblical Studies at Weiss Ferry Road, and I graduated. I got a job in North Florida, outside of Jacksonville, and they wanted me to do bus ministry. My wife and I had a lot of experience with that, and what that means is at Weiss Ferry Road we had about, I don't know, maybe 10 buses, old school buses. And they did some research and said if you paint them pink, more kids will come. Well, it looked like the Pepto-Bismol Express, man. I mean, they were the most hideous looking things ever. But all those kids, and particularly black kids, just loaded up like crazy on those buses. There were hundreds of them. And I don't know if you've met Mac Owen yet, but
no, I have not.
Mac Owen's the international director for Celebrate Recovery. His dad, Joe Owen, was like in charge of that. And he just did an incredible job. So when we got to North Florida, I won't say the name of the town, but when we got to North Florida, we started knocking on doors, which I hate doing, asking people if their kids wanted to come to church on the bus. And we walked up to this one house. It was a shack. Knocked on the door. This little black girl came to the door, and she said, "Hey, Miss Dasher." Well, Jan taught her in second grade. And we invited her to come. And the funny thing about that day, her mom was cooking chitlins. I'd never smelled chitlins cooking, but I thought they had sewer problems. I didn't know what was going on. It was terrible.
It's a rough thing to smell cook.
You what?
I said it's a rough thing to smell cook.
Ooh, well, some people say once you get past the smell, they're pretty good, but I never got past the smell. But anyway, Daisy started coming. She started bringing her little cousins and friends, and pretty soon we had about 25 or 30 black kids in the church. And the elders called me in and said, "You need to quit picking up those they used a bad word, kids, and I got smart with them, and next thing you know, I'm out on my ear, like I'm fired.
Wow.
I'm done. And I just wouldn't back down. And part of the reason that I didn't back down was because of the influence that my grandfather, who was a much nicer guy than me, who didn't back down, I was inspired by that. The good news is that, and I don't believe in church splits, but in that case, we wanted to continue to minister to these kids. And so we just started meeting, like more than probably 3/4 of the church left. And we started meeting in homes, and we kept on picking the kids up, bringing them on somebody. One of the guys that went with us was a Ford dealer, and he had a big 15-passenger Ford van. We picked all those kids up, made 2 or 3 runs, and so that's how that got started. And the funny thing is, that little girl, her name's Daisy Highland, and she and I are still friends to this day. She's still a believer. And I saw her at a funeral not many months ago, back in the spring. And I didn't recognize a lot of people there because I hadn't seen them in years, but I knew her. She said, "You don't remember me, do you?" I said, "Girl, what you talking about?" "Yeah, I remember you." I just love seeing her. And we stay in touch on Facebook, so I was cheating a little bit because I'd seen her picture on Facebook. But, that's one that was like a really big influence on me, my grandfather, and I can point directly to how he inspired me to behave. And I'm ashamed of my smart mouth. And I was 22 years old, 23. I got baptized by fire right off the bat. But I'm proud of the fact that I didn't cave in, because a lot of my pastor friends, preacher friends, they were encouraging me to cave in. They said, "Dude, like your career, you got to think about your career." And I said,
I am thinking about my career.
I told them, I said, if I cave in, I don't want it. If this is what having a career means in this business, and make no mistake about it, church can be business, I don't want it. And I'm glad that I didn't do that. I'm glad I followed my grandfather's example.
Awesome.
And your grandfather, now, is that Cliff Dykes that you were talking about?
Yeah.
That's what I just want to make sure I have all these names correct.
Yeah, Cliff Dykes.
So you mentioned Mac. Does your walk and Mac's walk start at roughly the same time? Is there overlap? Is there?
Well, he's younger than me. He looks older, but if he hears
He's
this,
younger than us.
he's younger. I think Mac may be 65.
Well, he's older than me.
I don't know how old he is. No, you what?
I said he's older than I am.
Yeah, Mac's a great guy. But I was already a believer when I got to West Monroe. Well, barely. I mean, my story about getting to West Monroe is I was into all kinds of foolishness. I was about 21 years old, and I went to church, but Friday to Saturday night, I was smoking weed and doing everything else that all good hippies do. And this is crazy, but the elders of the church approached me and said, "Look, the youth minister is taking a sabbatical. He's going to go back and finish his degree in Arkansas. Would you like to be the youth minister for the summer?" And inside I was going, "What?" But I was thinking to myself, maybe this is an opportunity for me to stop doing what makes me feel so bad. But I didn't. I mean, I kind of curtailed it a little bit, but I didn't stop it. And so at the end of the summer, they asked me to come meet with them. They wanted to talk to me. And I seriously thought they found out I'm busted. But they didn't. They said, "We want to send you to a preaching school in Louisiana, in a town called West Monroe, Louisiana. And we'll pay for your training. We'll pay. There wasn't any cost to go to the school, but then we'll pay your living expenses. And man, I jumped at that chance. I just said yes. It's exactly what I want. So I went back up to the college I'd gone to in Arkansas and flunked out of twice. Had a wild party weekend, just smoking weed and drinking, and drove up to West Monroe. I threw my cigarettes out the window when I drove up to the church, and I never smoked weed again. Never got drunk again, and I just started pouring myself into 8 hours a day studying the Bible, and plus studying on the week, at nights and on the weekends. And so that was how I got plugged in with him. Well, Mac was there. He was just a kid. His dad was on the staff of the church. And I saw him, and we kind of were friends. Not really, but I knew who he was. We talked. And later, he can give you his testimony one day, but later he became a believer, and he hit the ground running, man, big time. So that's how we got to know each other. It was years later, maybe, I don't know how many years later. It was a long time after I was there that he finally surrendered control of his life to Jesus.
So you were talking about a youth minister that had went back to Arkansas to finish studies. Would that have been Mike Kellett?
No.
Okay.
Mike didn't go to college in Arkansas. Well, he went to Arkansas State for a while. Yeah. But no, it wasn't Mike Kellett. I didn't know Mike Kellett until I can't remember when I met him. But I don't think he was there in the school when I was in the school. I think I met him later at Camp Chioka.
Well, from what I've heard, what I understand, that preaching school was no slouch of a school, that it was really good.
It was. It was, but it began to attract people that didn't want to work a real job after a while.
Yeah, I can see it.
And the church is a very different place now than it was back then. It was far more legalistic and sectarian, more about the denomination of the Church of Christ than it is now. So, that's the roots of the church, but they've come a long way since then, trust me. But it was good. There were a lot of people that came out of that school that graduated that went on and either did graduate work somewhere else in another denomination or just studied on their own and really came out. They had a good foundation. I'll say that. Just a disciplined foundation for Bible study and just looking at the scriptures in a fresh way. So it did good. It did a lot of good. But when they closed it, it was time to close it.
How long did it close after Al and Jace went through?
It was in the 90s. I don't know. Man, I'm old. I can't remember time. I don't know anything about timelines. I don't even know.
So were there professors or anything there, teachers, professors that you can remember that probably had the greatest impact on you while you were there in school?
Oh, yeah. Probably number one was Bill Smith.
Oh, wow.
And I would say a guy named Lynn Campbell really impacted me a lot. He was a bold, but he was a great preacher, great student of the word. He's since passed away a few years ago. I don't remember when, but it's been within the last 2 or 3, 4 years. Yeah, those two in particular, yeah, they were great. There were some that I didn't like, but those two guys were awesome.
So I know that you and Jam were with Robert and his wife in New Orleans when the first time when you hit your head, and that was when you kind of first realized that maybe there might be an issue with Jam whenever she didn't remember that you had hit your head. As that progressed through, are there people that you'd like to mention or that you could mention that really played a huge role in propping you up and standing by your side as you went through that?
Well, it was New Jersey after Sandy, not New Orleans.
Oh, really? I thought that was New Orleans that you.
No,
I'm sorry. I'm glad you corrected me.
I don't go to New Orleans. Yeah, I mean, Paula Godwin, who's John Godwin's wife, Jan's friend that she taught school with, Wendy Dickey, and her husband Dennis. My kids. Robert and Mike were always available for me to talk to, and so they propped me up a lot.
Well, this is going to I want to take this time, we're right around 35 minutes now, but I want to take this time and transition into what I feel like Gordon is after seeing what those guys have there in West Monroe, and it's not just WFR, it's other churches that it just seems like there's something special there when it comes to the church, the church, and I think it has to do with people's hearts and their desire. But church hurt. I like what you said. I wish that whenever I resigned that church 23 years ago, I wish I would have had a Gordon Dasher or a Todd Langdon or a Mike Kellett or a Robert Abels or a Paul Stevens or a J.J. Solis that would have come alongside of me and grabbed a hold of me by the shirt collar and put me up on my feet and said, "Look here, big boy, you need to suck it up and let's get on with the work here." But I didn't have it. And that's one of the things that I think especially with pastors is missing is, a lot of times, man, you feel like and you pastor. I mean, you preach there, and I don't know, do you pastor or you just kind of filling in? And so, and I'm preaching to the choir, man. There's times that you feel like you're alone, or you don't have anybody. Now, I don't know if you've ever felt that way. I know I did. Curtis does. And you live in a fishbowl. But at the same time, if I just wish I would have had that Gordon Dasher that would have grabbed a hold of me by the shirt collar, slapped me upside the head and said, "Look here, big boy, suck it up." So I don't know where, I know that you've got some thoughts on church hurt too, and I would love to hear those.
Well, that's probably just going out on a limb here and saying that's probably an insensitive way for me to put it.
No, not really. I mean, I'm dead serious. That's what I needed.
Well, the hurt is real.
Right. It definitely is.
When somebody who is supposed to be your spiritual mentor or your partner in the gospel turns around and stabs you in the back, or does something that they manipulate you in a narcissistic way, it's like adultery in a way. I mean, you can't say to a woman whose husband just ran off with some girl he met on the internet, "Suck it up, baby," and because the pain is real. It's not fake. But having said that, one of the things that, the church I was a part of in Gainesville, Florida, it was a big church, wasn't enormous in itself. It was maybe 1,300 people. But over the years, they had trained people up in their system of ministry, sent them out to different parts of the country to implement campus ministries at major universities. And then once these guys got older, they actually started their own churches. So one of them that started was in Boston. It was called the Boston Church of Christ. And it blew up to mega church size, like 4,000. They sent out teams to plant churches in London, Johannesburg, Rio de Janeiro, Atlanta, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, you name the big city, and they sent people out to start churches, to plant churches, which immediately began to grow into large churches, each one of them. So by the time this movement imploded on itself, it might have had 1 million people in it. I mean, it was big. And so I was on the staff of that church after the charismatic, by charismatic, I mean the guy that really was the driving force behind all of this. He got exposed, a secret sin that he had came to light. He was fired. It was the second time they caught him in it. They let him off the first time because they needed him there to hold it together, I think. But once he was exposed the second time, they fired him, and I came on staff then. Well, in the process, I just started looking at this legalistic theology that I had grown up in the churches of Christ. And it basically was rooted in do better. Like, you just need to be better. And I didn't know anything about the gospel, really. I mean, I knew Jesus died for my sins, but I thought grace, this is the way they taught it, grace was what God gives you so that you can earn your way. Like, it gives you a pass so you can get in the game. That's all it was. So I started studying. I was talking about somebody with this. I was talking to one of our pastors today about this. I started studying Galatians, and I began to see this whole new world open up for me of God's grace. Now, the mistake I made was I became so much about grace, and I told him this pastor that I talked to this morning, I became so much about grace that I hated the word obedience. I mean, I just hated it because it reeked of, just obey. It was almost like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So I wrongly pulled away from the word obedience for a while. But it was the beginning of me being able to see God's grace. And what I came away from it with after a period of time is where he descended from, that distance was so great. Like, for him to leave heaven and to come to earth, take on flesh and dwell among us, that was a trip and a half. You know what I mean? That was a long, you're complaining, Todd, about going to West Monroe, and I want to say, wah, wah, wah. Jesus, he came from heaven, son. That was a trip.
Let's get things in perspective here.
Yeah, it does. So suck it up, Todd.
That's right.
Get up. And anyway, it just conflicted what I was studying, and I didn't say anything I wasn't teaching anything that was out of line with the book of Galatians or Romans or even the whole Bible. I just left off a lot about, because my thoughts at the time, and I think I'm still right about this, true obedience flows out of this loving relationship with the triune God. Like, that's the only way that I can be obedient to God, is if I'm living in that safe place of his affection and knowing that I'm like, if I stumble, it's not the end of the world, which is what they were teaching. You sin one time, as soon as you sin, you're immediately lost until you ask for forgiveness. And so it was just like, there were so many people that I knew growing up with, and even in that church, that said, well, the heck with this. I can't keep up with it. Like, there's no way I'm going to make it, because I just, in spite of myself, I still wind up, like the hymn says, I'm prone to wonder. I'm prone to leave the God I love. Like, that's my nature.
That's right.
So they wound up, I made a big mistake. They called me in. One meeting lasted like 6 hours, and they're just frothing at the mouth. Like, they literally, like, spittle was coming out of this one elder's mouth. He screamed at me, and he just said, "You need to get on our agenda." And I said, "No, we need to study the scriptures together." No, you need to get on our agenda. Well, I should have said, this is how stupid I was. I should have said, you know what, boys? Love y'all, but the best thing we can do for the sake of the kingdom of God is for me to just leave. You send me on my way, and I'll leave, and you'll never hear from me again. Just get out of there. But I didn't. So I was kind of popular with the church, and they had a big congregational meeting, and they got up, and I'm gonna be honest with you, they flat out lied about me. It looked like one of these presidential debates. They just flat out lied, and I carried that wound around like for a couple of years. I mean, Todd, I was whining and complaining and making my case and explaining to people why these guys were so wicked, and they had some issues, I'll admit, but I never told anybody. My pride would not allow me to just resign and go on my way. I didn't think about the collateral damage of any of it. I just carried the wound like a big fat baby, and it almost destroyed me. And then one day, we didn't go to church anywhere. We met with a small group, small house church for a while, but then we moved out west of Gainesville to a little town called Trenton. And every Sunday, my faithful wife, she would, okay, let's go somewhere and have communion on the river or at the Gulf. And I remember I was going, oh my gosh, I'm tired of this crap. And we were sitting at a place called Sherrod Island on the Gulf of Mexico, and she was reading the Lord's Prayer. She read that out of Matthew 5 or 6, whatever it is. And she got to that part. I was barely paying attention. She got to that part that said, forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And for the first time ever, I realized that what it was saying to me is you'll be forgiven as you forgive. And I thought, these two guys that kind of orchestrated me being fired, they were younger guys. They were both, let me just say, they weren't the most manly guys in the world. And I dreamed about catching them in an alley somewhere and just beating the fire out of them. I mean, I was sitting in the barbershop. I started cutting hair for a living. I'd sit in the barbershop. I'd pick up one of those magazines and those cards they used to put in them that you fill them out and send it in to get the subscription. I thought, we'll say this one guy's name is Bobby. I said, I ought to fill these out with Bobby's name on it, his address, and then sit down the street. This was before video cameras. Sit down the street and watch him open the mailbox and all that stuff, along with the bills, all these magazines falling out.
Fall out. That's right.
And then when she prayed that prayer, I go, oh, man, I just got hit by a ball-peen hammer right between the eyes. And I literally began to pray for him. And I said, Lord, please give me a spirit of forgiveness. And I realized in the midst of all of that I was guilty of way more than Jesus was. He was guilty of nothing, and they killed him. I was guilty of a lot, and all I got was I got fired. Nobody killed me. Nobody took my kids away. Nobody confiscated my property. I didn't even get my name in the paper. So I began to pray for this guy. I prayed for his wife to honor him and his children to grow up to be faithful. And I prayed for his job, and I prayed for God to give me the grace to be able to forgive this guy. And once I began to do that, I began to realize that the scriptures the New Testament especially, is chock full of admonition for us to suck it up, like persecution, opposition, people talking bad about you, people ripping your name to shreds. It actually goes with the territory of preaching the gospel of God's grace.
That's right. It does.
And Jesus said, hey, in Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount, right at the Beatitudes, he said, blessed are you when you're persecuted and when people revile you and say all manner of evil things about you, hey, they did it to me first. So when it happens to you, it's a badge of discipleship. Paul said, all who live godly in Christ Jesus will be persecuted.
Will be.
Huh?
Will be. Not question, not maybe. You will
listen to this. We don't want you to be uninformed, brothers, about the hardships we suffered in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, in our hearts, we felt the sentence of death. But this happened. Why did God allow that? This happened so that we might not rely on ourselves, but on the God who raises the dead.
Yep.
So here's my takeaway from all of that. You asked me about, do I pastor now? Yes. We how much time we got?
You go ahead, brother. You're good. We're on your time. I just want to be. Todd and I love this. We love doing this, so you ain't bothering us none at all.
So when I pulled into Asheville, I didn't want a big church. I didn't want to go to a big church again. But I wanted to plug in somewhere. My wife Jan was like, man, it was bad. She didn't even know who I was half the time. She reported me for. She said that man's trying to kill me, and she's pointing at me. We're in public. So I'm driving around one day, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? She was in the hospital, and I had to admit her because she was a danger to herself. I had her admitted to the hospital in Asheville, and I'm driving around, and I saw this sign that said, Swannanoa Christian Church. So I pulled down there. The Christian church, independent Christian churches, are a lot like the churches of Christ, except they've got instrumental music, which a lot of churches of Christ are doing now. So I thought, well, I'm familiar with that tradition. I'll go down there and see what it's all about. I drove down there. The building was it wasn't unkept, but it was stark. It didn't have there was no pizzazz to it at all. And I thought to myself, this place looks dead. And then I thought to myself, I think I'll go there Sunday morning. Now, why would I think that? I don't know. So I pulled in Sunday morning. They were having Sunday school. I went in the basement. And we started talking. There was about maybe 8 people there. All of them were older than me, which means they were old. And one of the elders, there was one elder left in the church. The other one had died. And he said, hey, Gordon, what'd you used to do for a living? I said, I was a pastor. And he said, really? We're looking for a pastor. So I started preaching on Sundays. Well, COVID hit, and we shrunk up to 3 people, me and 2 other old dudes. Well, simultaneously to that, there were all these people around here. The governor wouldn't let churches meet, which I think is unconstitutional, but that's another discussion. He wouldn't let churches meet. So my son and me and a guy named Brandon Hudson, we started a house church in Black Mountain, North Carolina, outside of Asheville. And it just blew up, man. I mean, we're in Zach's house and it's packed. He's got a big family room, like a big one, real big. And it was packed, 50, 60 people. So one day, one of the guys at the other church, we were online, and I hung out with these guys a little bit. We go to eat once a week on Wednesday night. These 2 old men that were left in the original church. And we went to eat one night, and the elder said, why are you guys tearing up Zach's house? We'll give you this building. I'm tired. I can't do it anymore. I've been an elder here for 40 years, and I've just got too much personal stuff going on. So we'll sign it over to you and Zach and Brandon. You guys just come over here, and you are the elders at the church. And I said, well, I'll ask them that. So we did. That's what we wound up doing. And in January of 21, we started meeting there with about 30 people, 40 people maybe. And we set it up this way. We don't have a lead pastor. We're an elder-led church. We have 3 elders right now. We're about to install 2 more. Then we'll have 5. The elders do the preaching. So that means I preach once a month, once every 5 weeks. I think I'm better than them, but that's okay. They don't agree, but we joke around about me being the senior pastor, senior in years. And then some of them call me sarcastically this senior global pastor. So we don't have any of that, none of that. And we don't advertise. We don't have social media. We don't have a strategy for growth. And all it is just community. And like we started with a bunch of people that were church hurt, is the point I'm getting at. All these people, the original group, came out of a couple other. One was a failed church plant from another denomination, and that's where Brandon came from. And they were just filled with this anger at how they had been manipulated and controlled. So one of the turning points, I'd forgotten about this until Brandon reminded me of it. He said, "You've got a way of saying things that would make people mad if anybody else said them. I don't know how you get away with it." I said, "It's just a gift, son. It's a gift." So in our house church, I did with Brandon at the time. Oh, and that's another thing. We wanted to be house church based too. So we meet on Sunday morning, but on Wednesdays, we have small groups, house churches, whatever. And so I'm in this group with Brandon, who brought in all these other disciples from this other failed church plant, and they were all bitter. I got this one guy. They were the pastor, the lead pastor from that church. They were angry, and every week it was about what we'll call him Bobby too. Okay, what Bobby had done. Bobby did this. Bobby did that. I'd been there a couple of months, and I said, "Okay." It was my turn to lead one week, and I said, "Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read a scripture. Here it is. Love your enemies and pray for those that persecute you." And I just stopped and I looked at him, and I don't know what happened to you guys, but you all disappeared. Can you see me still?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we can see
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
All right. So, I said, we're going to pray. We're going to do this. We're going to go around the room, and I want each of you people, and they were at church. I said, I want you to pray for Bobby. And they said, "Are you serious?" I said,
Yes.
"Oh, trust me, I'm dead serious." I said, "I want you to pray for Bobby. I want you to pray for his marriage. I want you to pray for his children. I want you to pray for his job. I want you to pray for his ministry. I want you to pray some kind of blessing over Bobby." And some of them, it was kind of like me when I first started praying for this other Bobby that tormented me. It was like, they're like, "Lord, I just want to pray for you to bless Bobby." They couldn't hardly get the words out. It was so funny.
Yeah.
And but it was the beginning of healing for them, because the elders had already said, we don't want a church whose identity is we're running from a church that hurt us. We want a church that seeks to be in the presence of God individually and together. We want a church full of people who desire the kind of community where we're encouraging one another to pursue the infinite God who died for us and who defines life for us, who defines reality for us. Like, we want to find our identity in that. What happened to us in the past, it just goes with the territory of being a follower of Jesus. So that's kind of the narrative of, when I say suck it up, I don't mean to be insensitive.
By no means are you.
No, I'm not. I've been there, and I had people tell me it's time for you to get over this without any strategy for how I could do it. Nobody brought these scriptures to me. Nobody, about persecution and hardship. and how it actually it serves to discipline us to rely on the triune God more than we rely on ourselves. So I had this idea before all that happened to me, I had visions of being that guy that stood up before large crowds of people and wooed them in large contributions and brand new fancy church building. And, I'd be asked to speak all over the nation and the country, the world. And like, I would be that guy. But God said, no, that's actually not what I have in store for you. And I'm grateful for that now. I wasn't then, but I am now.
Gordon, I think about now how stupid I was to allow that to happen. I mean, 20 years. And that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to be baptized again. Listen, I know I wanted to be obedient. But as I look back now, what I went through wasn't nothing. And when I think about King David, the man that he loved did everything he could to kill him. I mean, he loved him, but he did everything in the world to kill him, tried to take him out. I mean, and then Jonathan, who was his brother. I mean, he loved him better than anything. And I mean, and the things that so whenever I look back and I see what I allowed to happen to me, I was stupid. I was, as in the words of Cy Robertson, you idiot. That's exactly what he looked at me and said, you idiot. Why'd you let that happen for?
I think Cy Robertson will go down in the history of our nation as the greatest American philosopher to ever live.
We love you, Cy.
I'll bring to the conversation is growing up. I grew up in Alabama until I was 33 years old.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. But growing up in Alabama in the middle of the Bible Belt, they didn't bring the loving relationship that you're to seek with Jesus. They brought a Bible and they beat you over the head and said, do what we do because we say that's what you do. And that kept me away from the church until it kept me away from God until I was 45. And it was a testimony of a loving relationship seeking after Jesus that brought me. And I don't know. I can't even think of how many more are around that has that same outlook. And the only thing I would say is, it's a relationship just as much as it's a relationship with John, with a new found relationship with Gordon, as much as it's a relationship as it is with your wife. That's the type of loving relationship and even infinitely more so that this walk requires.
Well, think about the fruit of the Spirit, for example.
That's good.
Love, huh?
That's good.
It's the fruit of the Spirit. Love. It's not a cafeteria. This is all part of the package. When you walk with Christ and He gives you a Spirit, what flows out of that is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So why would I want to squander that? Which is the conclusion I came to. Why would I want to squander that for somebody that doesn't even love me? And I need to add this in there. That guy Bobby, my Bobby,
right?
Let me tell you, there's a Facebook page. I'm not going to name the church. I'm not going to name the name of the church, but let's say the name of the church is The Rock. There's a bunch of them. It's called Members of The Rock from the 70s and 80s. It's a bunch of old timers. And they get on there, and it's kind of amazing to me that they're still stuck in this so many of them are stuck in this legalism. The irony is Bobby, and I don't remember when this happened, but it had to be 15, maybe 18 years ago. Bobby got on there. We lost contact. He did me wrong, man. He did me wrong, and it hurt. I thought we were tight. And Bobby got on that Facebook page and said, if anybody knows where Gordon Dasher is, I would like to talk to him because I need to apologize for what I did to him.
Wow.
38, let's see, from 84, I'm not good at math, so let's say it was 2004. 88 to 2004. How is that, 28 years?
Roughly, yeah.
28 years. Now, what if I had carried that dung, to use a biblical term, around in my heart for 28 years? I cannot tell you how good it felt to say to him on that page, whatever I had to forgive you of, I did it a long time ago when I realized that I'm guilty before God too. And that's the point. Whoever's done you wrong, and it could have been something really horrible, horrific. You could have been sexually abused by somebody in ministry, or you lost your job or your house or whatever. I don't know. But no matter how bad it was, they didn't do you. They did no more. They did the harm they did to you. It doesn't even come close to the way that you sinned against God. And that's what I had to come to terms with that. It allowed me to forgive this dude. And it also was very cool that when he finally apologized, what I had wanted, I actually didn't want him to apologize. I wanted to whip his butt, and I could have easily done it. And, I'm ashamed of that now. I wanted him to suffer, man. I wanted him to lose his wife, and I wanted his kids. I mean, I had the worst. And I'd go out. I didn't get drunk, but I'd go out and buy a 6-pack and drink 3. And I had no money because I got fired. So it was like Old Milwaukee or something. I don't know what's a cheap beer. I don't know, but it was the cheap Jack's. No, what's the one out of New Orleans? Whatever it was, I think it was Jack's beer. But it was so. I mean, Dixie beer. That was it. I'd buy the cheapest junk, and I'd drink 3 of them every night just to, what did that do for me? You know what? That dude still went to bed every night, living in luxury, still had his job. My resentment toward him didn't change him one single bit. I had to be patient. I had to learn to be patient and let God work on his heart. And by the time that he repented and came to me publicly asking for forgiveness, I was extremely happy for him, not me. I didn't even need it anymore. Does that make sense?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't need it. I was happy that he had come to that point. So it's liberating, man, to not dwell. I mean, somebody kicks you in the butt. I didn't say it.
You say gonads.
Somebody kicks you in the crotch, it's painful, it hurts for a while, but it only keeps on hurting if you keep hitting yourself over and over in the same
That's
spot.
right. Yes.
So anyway, that's my take on church hurt. Suck it up, but I don't mean it that way. I mean, like, take it for your share and your participation in the gospel and get on with your life. You never lose.
Keep moving forward for the kingdom.
You never lose one single thing of value by saying, I forgive this person, even if they don't ask for it. You actually gain a great deal, because it's at that point that you're liberated. Resentment and hatred and unforgiveness is like a big, enormous, heavy chain with, 1,000-pound weights hanging off of it. And it's locked with this massive padlock, and you can't get it off. So it'll weigh you down, and it will actually destroy you. And if it doesn't destroy your faith, it will hamper it. You won't be able to enjoy it. So Anyway,
No,
here's one thing.
That's exactly what we were looking for.
So Gordon, you went through the fruits of the Spirit. And if we really live and we operate.
Hold on. Fruit of the Spirit. It's
fruit.
It's plural.
Fruit.
It's
fruit.
Plural.
Okay.
I don't know what that
All
means, but it's not plural.
Well, it's just like it's not revelations, it's revelation.
Yeah, but I don't argue with that. If you said revelations, I just think it's a package deal. And that's why I said it's not a cafeteria where you get to go in there. I think I want a little love, joy, and peace, but I don't want the gentleness part. It's when you walk with Christ, these things, as Peter said, you begin to possess them in increasing nature, like in measure. They grow on you. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? So go ahead. I'm sorry to.
It's like a good gumbo. If you start eating, certain parts of that gumbo, you throw it out, it ain't gonna taste the same. I mean, it's just not gonna have the same. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking to some fellas here who love good gumbo, or jambalaya. So, but where I was going with that is, I went to one of the things that if you truly operate in the fruit of the Spirit, truly, that means your heart is in the right place. And if your heart is in the right place, if you go to Romans 12:20, it says, therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. Now, I know that was hard, Gordon, for you to not, and listen, I'll tell you a little something here in a minute about it. It says, for in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Now, listen, I think that coals of fire could also be by you loving, by you, when we truly forgive someone for what they do against us. Who knows what kind of conviction that guy was living under for all those years? How long did he carry that and live with that? But at the same time, you in your heart, you had truly, we mature, man. I mean, that's why we treat our grandkids different than we did our firstborn when we were in our early 20s.
Yep.
You learn this wisdom that we gain through experience in this life. But you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I had to come to terms with was it wasn't the people in the church. It was the organization that I was with. I was telling you, it was with the Assemblies. It was the Appalachian District of the Assemblies of God in Southern West Virginia. And they bragged about all the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they sent overseas to missions, and had churches falling apart and air conditioners couldn't work. I just kind of feel like that there were some, vision that should have been put back in towards at home. But I had legal issues. Our church was located in the floodplain, and they were backfilling or landfilling all around us, which was going to put the water up higher in the church every time it flooded. We had a ton of maintenance issues and stuff, and we were a small congregation, just like you guys were. And I needed help. So my wife and I sent a letter to the district, and I knew every one of those guys that sat on the board. I painted the president's house. The vice president was the pastor of the church that I was attending whenever I left to go pastor that church. So I knew all those guys. Went on mission trips with them. We sent a letter, and I told Ev, I said, we're with it 30 days. And if we don't get a response in 30 days, either a phone call, a letter, a visit, or something, we're going to resign this church. 30 days come, it was crickets, nothing, nobody. And all the letters went out registered mail, so I knew they had to sign for them. So we mailed in our resignation and announced it to the church. And boy, let me tell you something. You talking about hearing from people then. So when we left the church, people that we thought loved us and cared for us and had our back were the first ones to drive a knife between your shoulders. And what I didn't know was she'll kill me for, there were things, I'll put it this way, my wife was the worship leader, and there were things that I didn't know that were going on with her until after I had rededicated my life to the Lord. And through my walk now, I feel like God pretty much revealed to me now. He said, John, you didn't fail me. I didn't fail you. I had to get you out of there to save your family. And
so did you turn away from God or just the church?
I turned away from both. I felt like a failure, Gordon. I felt like that I'd failed God, and I was embarrassed. And I'll be honest with you, I felt like he failed me. We gave everything we had to that church. But
I got to be friends with a guy. Well, I'm friends with Mac. I've gone to Celebrate Recovery a lot. I'm going to be speaking in Trenton, Florida on October 5th at their church. And then I'm going to go down to Braden and go back up on the 8th to speak at their Celebrate Recovery. We're showing the movie. I think it'll be impactful. I taught there for many years. But anyway, this person in recovery told me this. It's some of the best advice I ever got. Expectations are nothing but planned resentments.
Ooh.
Your expectations were wrong. So were mine.
yeah.
And so when we're going into it with this expectation that I'm going to be treated fairly, and I expect another human being to fill that void in my life, I'm already set up for failure. And that's where I went astray. I didn't turn away completely from God, but I could have, it wouldn't have taken much. I wanted to get this in before we leave because I think this is really important. I'm writing a book for a guy that is an NFL Hall of Famer right now. And his name is Mike Singletary. And
really? That's awesome.
He's an incredible. I haven't met him in person yet, but we spend hours on the phone all the time. I mean, he's giving me all these stories. He sent a manuscript and it had good stuff in it. It was Phil's agent that actually sent it to me and said, "Can you help him with this?" I go, "Yeah, I can help him with this easy." So we've taken a lot of his stuff, his ideas, and we're wrapping them up in stories from his past that he didn't have a lot in there, and fleshing out with detail. But anyway, his book's going to be powerful if he can get it published. It's going to be amazing, and I'm pretty sure he will.
Yeah,
But
with a name like Mike Singletary, I don't think you're going to have any trouble finding a publisher.
I don't think so either. And his character is just unassailable, I think. I mean, I've spent enough time with him on the phone. I just, you can pick up that vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing fake or phony about it. But anyway, we were talking about somebody that he knew who was molested as a child, and it really profoundly changed the direction of their life. And I got to thinking about that. I was never technically molested, but two people tried. And guess what they did for a living?
No way.
Yeah, both of them were pastors. Two people. Now, I've always been pretty quick to think and get out of stuff. And both times, one of them was a pastor, and two people in his church had a paper route. They were in grad school. They had a paper route. They got the mumps. So they asked him if he would deliver the paper, and they were friends with my parents, this couple. And so they asked my mom if I could help the pastor deliver the papers. And he got me away on the east side of Gainesville. And I remember exactly where we were. And he started proposing something to me. He wanted to mess with me. And I told him, I said, I don't know, but I think I'm going to throw up. I just made it up on the spot. I said, I feel like I'm about to vomit. He said, not my car. He said, I'll take you home. Well, on the way, he did the old, hey, don't tell anybody about what we talked about. And I didn't, because I was ashamed. Sometimes I wish I'd told my dad, but my dad would have killed him, and then I wouldn't have had a father. Well, I don't know. Back in the 60s, would they have put him in prison for killing somebody like that? I don't know. But both times were pastors. That's no lie. So, I know people who've been sexually abused by ministry leaders. I mean, it happens a lot because that profession, if it's not an obsession with you to preach the gospel, it's an easy place for pedophiles and sexual predators and charlatans of all kinds to hide. And they may not manipulate you sexually, they may manipulate you financially,
Yep.
or they just may be
Yep.
building their own personal kingdom, and they draw you into that, and they impose all these draconian demands on you that would, like, it overpowers you, and you're left with the feeling like God's man just raped me. It's not, though. It's not God's man. God's people, I'm putting that in quotes, God's people, the ones who said they were God's people, they're the very ones who nailed Jesus to the cross.
Yes.
They're the ones that stoned Stephen, God's
That's right.
people. And all of the early disciples, I mean, it wasn't, I don't think the persecution was initially driven by the Romans at all. It came from the church.
Yep.
And what did Jesus say? Love them, pray for them, forgive them.
That's
Love
it.
them, pray for them,
Pray for
forgive
them,
them.
forgive them.
Like if you're wounded by the church, you don't really have an option. Like, there's no plan B here. Like, this is what's demanded of you, and it's not disconnected from the gospel. It is a part of the gospel, because you're going to forgive as God has forgiven you. That's what it means. You look at your own self and you realize, as bad as this pastor was who sexually abused me, I've rebelled against the creator of the universe. I told him to go to hell. I told him I wanted to sit on his throne. I mean, that's what sin is. It's like, I want to be in charge. Get off the throne and let me have it. I can do a better job. That's way worse by far than anything any other human being has ever done to me. So,
and if we say we can't forgive somebody, or we never let something go, is the same as telling Christ that what he did upon the cross wasn't enough.
you know what? He, on the cross, that person that tried to abuse me, he died for him too.
Exactly.
right.
That's
He
right.
died for him too. He died for the guy that tried to kill former President, what's his name? Trump yesterday. He died for all of them. That's why it's, I mean, this all comes as a package. That's why I hate to see Christians getting involved in this political stuff. I'll state my opinions, but to make the personal attacks against President Trump or Kamala Harris or Biden or whoever, like, no, you don't make fun of his dementia. It's not funny to me at all.
No.
There's nothing funny about watching a man in cognitive stumbling for his words. I've been there and done that, and I don't care who he is. It's just not funny, and it's not Christ-like.
No.
So, look, if you want to have me on one time to talk about political stuff, I'm very willing to discuss issues about, like, where I can talk about it from both sides, from the MAGA crowd, how they're disconnected from the gospel, and the other side, the woke crowd, how they're disconnected from the gospel. I don't put my stock in any of them. I put my stock.
I'm going to tell you something. What you wrote, what was it that you wrote? What was it that happened? Oh my gosh, you wrote that article.
Oh, the blog?
Yes.
Yeah, what was it? What happened when you wrote that? What was the issue? What was the event that happened? And you wrote something out there, Gordon, and it was awesome.
Oh, it was about the opening ceremonies of the Olympics.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That was awesome. That was absolutely incredible.
Like, I get it. Like, these people are mocking my Lord and Savior. Well, they did it when they killed him. They looked at him and said, "Come down off the cross, King boy." They laughed at him. They jeered at him. You know what he said?
I forgive them.
They don't know what they're doing.
That's
These
right.
people that's an example. Those people at the opening ceremony of the Olympics have no idea who they're mocking. If they did, they would fall down in fear and tremble. They would. But Jesus said, "I forgive them." So who am I? Bottom line, we could wrap it up with this, but who am I to hang on to that crap? It's it destroys me because it does not reflect the nature and character of Christ who lives in me. That's why
Amen.
it's wrong. So,
Hey, listen, I'd love to have you back to talk about both sides, because I think that's something that we're missing today. Now, listen, we don't get wrapped up in politics, but I think when you take the politics and you put the gospel to it to bring a new light to things, I'm all about it. I don't argue politics with anybody. My wife is all about that. She does all that for both of us. I don't have to worry about that. But what I do is I tell people, they say, well, are you Republican or are you Democrat? And I tell them, I say, look, I am Republican by choice, because they align as close as they possibly can to my biblical beliefs. But I said, I am Christian by faith. And nobody will ever take that away from me. I don't care what party anybody's attached to. I'm Christian. Christ died upon the cross for me and my sins and the sins of this world. I don't care what party you're part of. He died for both sides, everybody.
well, let me tell you something else. I know who I'm going to vote for, and you could probably guess. I'm an originalist. I have a biblical worldview, but I don't think that any lines up. But taken as a whole, I know who I'm going to vote for, but I do know this,
Right.
and you can put this in the bank. Donald Trump did not die for my sins.
No,
He was not raised from the dead for me, and neither was Kamala Harris.
Nope.
She didn't die for me. None of them did. So for me to put my hope in them, like, well, we're going to lose our Christian liberties. This kind of goes in with the church hurt discussion. Show me that in Scripture, Christian freedoms. I don't think there's a scripture that supports that.
I don't think so.
It's still the same thing. Like, these things happen so that you might learn to rely on the God who raises the dead and not yourselves. That's the bottom line. So yeah, I mean, I'll speak out against abortion or same-sex marriage. I mean, I'll try to make an argument that this is not in alignment with God's purpose and will, that when we get outside of his purpose and design for our sexuality or for bearing children or whatever, then we're taking a path that's going to lead to our own destruction. I can make that argument all day long, but I'm not waiting for the Supreme Court or the Congress of the United States to do anything for me. Like,
Nope.
I want to put my faith in the kingdom of God and the King of all kings, the Lord of all lords. His kingdom, Daniel 2:44 says, it can never be destroyed. It can never be shaken. You cannot destroy the kingdom of God, no matter what comes against it. It will not be destroyed. The United States, it will fall. All other kingdoms and nations, they all collapse.
They came and went.
They came and went. They've come and gone. You know, they've come and went. I want to use bad grammar here. They've come and went. But
Hey, leave it to the redneck from Florida.
dude, so you're from Alabama making fun of me for being a redneck from Florida. That's pretty sweet.
And
Are you
now
an
I
Alabama?
feel pretty good being from West Virginia. You bunch of
Are you a big Alabama fan, Todd?
I can't stand football.
What? You're not even a Christian, man.
Wow.
Saturday afternoons in the SEC is just a pre-church event. I mean, it's
about the only thing I get into. I get into college baseball. That's about it. That's about as far as I go.
I like it too. I don't really care. I just use it to mess with those people from LSU. I hope we can beat them this year, so I don't have to hear all that junk from everybody in West Monroe.
Ah,
Oh my God! Well, they're not very good. So,
All right, guys.
thanks for being here with us on
Yeah,
Let's
man.
Talk Fortitude. And Gordon, thank you so much for your time. We enjoy our conversations and look forward to more to come.
All right.
yeah.
man.
Hey, Gordon, hang out on the back side of this for just 1 second. I want to talk to you about the Trenton thing and maybe you coming down here to Bradenton. So hang on just 1 second. I won't keep you but a second. Everybody, once again, please go to 611armory.com, 611armory.com. You can pick up your merch there, merch, how you want to say it. Go support Brian. 100% of all the Let's Talk Fortitude proceeds goes to One Kingdom at Whites Ferry Road Church. And Brian gives a portion of his, I'm not sure what. Now, everything, he's even given everything of his on the Let's Talk Fortitude, 100% is going to One Kingdom. Then he gives another portion of everything. He's got the gospel symbols hats that you've seen on the Unashamed, and that you saw J.D. Malone, Brody Malone, the Olympian. Brian sent him that hat right before the Olympian trials. So anyway, go check them out. Also, forerunnerproductions.com, forerunnerproductions.locals.com. Go over and check Chad out. He's got some short film stuff that he's posting up, and things are really moving and shaking for him over there. So anyway, Gordon, man, we love you. Hang out here 1 second. Let me get us out of here, and I'll holler at you here on the backside.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, brother. Really, it is.